The Millionaire CEO forced her to abort, but years later, fate made him freeze. What happens when a man who thought his money could erase everything is suddenly forced to face the very life he tried to destroy? In this story, you'll see how a single cruel demand came back to haunt a powerful man in a way he never imagined. Stay with me, because what unfolds isn't just about wealth. It's about karma, choices, and the moment when fate refuses to be ignored. Adrian Blackwell had everything most men only dream of. At 38, he was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. His face was often on the covers of Forbes and Wall Street Journal. His name was spoken with awe in boardrooms, feared in negotiations, and whispered with envy in elite parties. But beneath the polished surface of success lay something darker, a man who believed money could buy control over every aspect of his life. And for a while, he was right. Adrian's life had been built on control. His penthouse overlooked the city skyline, a constant reminder that he had climbed higher than anyone expected. The shimmering towers below felt small compared to his reach. He didn't just own companies, he owned narratives, bending stories, and people alike to his will. And then, there was her. Her name was Claire Donovan. She was nothing like the women he usually surrounded himself with. She wasn't a model chasing status or a socialite playing games. She was a bright, determined graduate student working part-time at a bookstore, someone whose laughter was unpolished but genuine. They met by accident, or perhaps fate, one evening when Adrian ducked into the bookstore during a rainstorm. He had walked in, shaking droplets off his expensive coat. His presence immediately commanded the space. Claire, behind the counter, looked up and didn't recognize him. That was unusual. "Can I help you find something?" she asked, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Adrian had paused. He was used to women stumbling over themselves when they realized who he was. But Claire's eyes were calm, curious, almost challenging. For the first time in years, Adrian felt disarmed. Their connection grew quickly, too quickly for Adrian's carefully planned life. Dinners turned into late-night talks, laughter into intimacy, and soon Claire found herself entangled in a world of wealth she'd never imagined. But with that world came shadows. Claire learned that Adrian was charming, yes, but also controlling. He liked things his way, from the restaurants they ate at to the conversations they had. And when Claire discovered she was pregnant, the mask of charm slipped entirely. The night Claire told him, she expected a complicated conversation. She didn't expect cruelty. Adrian sat across from her in his penthouse living room, the city glittering beneath them like a sea of diamonds. His expression was unreadable at first, but then his jaw tightened. "No," he said flatly. "No? Adrian, I'm telling you, I'm pregnant." "I heard you, and I'm saying no. This can't happen." Her heart pounded. "Can't happen? Adrian, this is our child." His eyes hardened. "It's not a child. Not yet, and it will never be. You don't understand the stakes here, Claire. My reputation, my company, everything I've built. Do you think I'll risk it all for a mistake?" "A mistake?" Her voice broke. Adrian leaned forward, his tone sharper. "You'll end this, quietly. I'll make sure it's handled, and you'll be compensated. You'll go back to your life, and no one will ever know." Claire felt the room closing in around her. This wasn't a conversation. This was an order. Tears welled in her eyes. "Adrian, I thought you loved me." He hesitated for half a second, then said the words that would shatter her. "Love has nothing to do with this. Do as I say." For days, Claire wrestled with the impossible. Her friends noticed she was quieter, distant. She avoided their questions, trapped between her own heart and Adrian's ruthless command. And in the end, she gave in. The procedure was done, and though Adrian never spoke of it again, Claire could never forget. The silence between them grew heavier until one day she simply walked away. No goodbyes, no explanations. She disappeared from his life like a ghost, leaving Adrian to bury the memory beneath layers of work and ambition. For 2 years, Adrian convinced himself he had done the right thing, that Claire had been nothing more than a distraction, and that erasing her from his story was necessary. He never admitted, even to himself, that sometimes in the middle of the night he saw her face in his dreams, heard the echo of her voice asking him how love could be so conditional.
2 years later, Adrian was no longer the same man, at least not outwardly. His empire was stronger than ever. His public image gleamed. He had new women on his arm at charity galas, new headlines praising his brilliance. But fate doesn't erase. It waits. And one ordinary Saturday afternoon, in the polished glass corridors of a high-end shopping mall, Adrian Blackwell's carefully built world began to crumble. He was walking out of an exclusive boutique, his phone in hand, dictating sharp instructions to his assistant, when someone caught his eye. A woman. Her hair was shorter now, styled simply. She wasn't wearing designer clothes, just jeans and a soft sweater. But her posture, the quiet strength in her presence, he knew instantly it was Claire. And beside her walked a small child, a boy, no more than 2 years old, clutching her hand. Adrian froze. His words died on his lips. His phone slipped from his hand, clattering against the marble floor. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The mall around him blurred into nothing. There was only Claire and the boy, his boy. Adrian's heart pounded like a war drum. Every instinct screamed at him to step forward, to speak, to demand answers, but his feet felt like stone. Claire glanced up, her eyes meeting his for the first time in 2 years. The air between them was electric, suffocating, a storm of memory, pain, and something unspoken. And then, with the boy still gripping her hand, Claire turned. She walked away, leaving Adrian standing in the middle of the mall, paralyzed, powerless, and haunted by the ghost of a choice he thought he had buried forever. Adrian stood frozen in the middle of the mall long after Claire disappeared into the crowd. His phone lay abandoned at his feet, but he couldn't bend down to pick it up. His chest felt tight, every breath ragged, as though the walls of the glass corridors were closing in. The boy, the small hand gripping Claire's, the curve of his jawline that looked unmistakably familiar. It couldn't be, and yet Adrian knew. Deep in his bones, he knew. "Sir?" His assistant rushed up, picking up the fallen phone. "Is everything all right?" Adrian snapped back, his face pale. Leave me. Cancel my next meeting." "But, sir!" "Cancel it!" His voice thundered, making shoppers turn their heads. The assistant shrank back, and Adrian stormed out of the mall, his polished composure shattered. That night, Adrian lay in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling. The city lights blinked outside, but he saw only Claire's face. Her eyes when they met his, not surprised, not angry, but calm, resolved. And the boy. The boy's whose presence made Adrian's heart thunder with something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. He poured himself a drink, then another. The liquor burned, but it couldn't drown the image from his mind. Finally, close to dawn, he whispered to the empty room, "My son." The words tasted bitter, foreign. By morning, the CEO and Adrian snapped back into action. If Claire thought she could vanish into thin air again, she was mistaken. He had resources, investigators, connections, endless money. "Find her," he ordered his head of security. "Her name is Claire Donovan. I want every detail, where she lives, where she works, everything." The man nodded. Understood. Within days, Adrian had answers. Claire was living modestly in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. She worked as a teacher's assistant at a local preschool. No scandal, no headlines, no trace of the life she had once brushed against. And the boy, named Daniel, was 2 years old. 2 years. The math was undeniable. Adrian gripped the file so tightly his knuckles turned white. The arrogance that had once fueled him began to crumble under the weight of a truth he couldn't ignore. On a gray Thursday afternoon, Adrian's sleek black car pulled up outside the preschool. Children's laughter drifted across the playground. And then he saw him. Daniel, running clumsily after a ball, his giggles ringing in the air. Adrian's chest tightened. The boy looked so much like him it was painful. Before he could stop himself, Adrian stepped out of the car. He walked toward the fence, every step heavy. Daniel stopped running. He looked up. For a moment, their eyes met. Wide, innocent eyes, staring at a stranger who wasn't a stranger at all. Adrian's throat closed. He wanted to speak, to call out. But then Claire appeared. She froze when she saw him, her hand instinctively reaching for Daniel. "Adrian," she said coldly, her voice low but sharp, "you don't belong here." His words stumbled. "I just wanted to see him."
Claire's expression hardened. "You lost that right the day you told me to erase him." Her grip tightened around Daniel's hand. "Leave and don't come back." Adrian stood there, shattered as she walked away. The echo of her words cut deeper than any business loss ever had. That night, Adrian replayed her words over and over. You lost that right. For the first time in his life, he realized that his power meant nothing. No amount of money, no influence, no corporate empire could rewrite the past or force Claire to forgive. He sat in silence, staring at a photograph from the file, Claire and Daniel at a park, smiling. It was a happiness he had never given her. Adrian's reflection in the glass window looked hollow, haunted. He barely recognized himself. Days later, Adrian couldn't resist. He found himself outside Claire's modest home. He stood at the gate, rehearsing words in his head, words that sounded foreign. Apologies, regrets, please. Finally, Claire opened the door. She froze again, her eyes narrowing. "Adrian, why are you here?" He swallowed hard. I need to talk to you, please." Claire stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Her arms crossed. Talk. The CEO who once commanded boardrooms now struggled to form a sentence. "I saw him. Claire, he's mine, isn't he?" She didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Adrian's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you? After what you did? You made me choose, Adrian. You made me walk into that clinic alone. You erased me. Us. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Her voice broke, but she steadied herself. "I chose to survive. I chose to raise him without the shadow of your cruelty hanging over us. That boy doesn't need your money or your name. He needs peace. And I'll protect that with everything I have." Adrian felt the weight of her words crush him. For once, he had no defense. "I was wrong. I see that now. Claire, please, let me be part of his life. Let me make this right." Her laugh was bitter. "Make it right? Adrian, you can't undo the past. You can't buy forgiveness. Not from me, not from him." She turned, her hand on the door. "Go home. Leave us alone." And with that, she shut him out. Adrian stood there, staring at the closed door, his chest hollow. For the first time in decades, he felt powerless. But as he turned to leave, a small voice called out from inside the house. "Mommy, who was that man?" Adrian froze, his heart twisted, and for the first time in his life, he wondered if there was anything left in him worth redeeming. "Mommy, who was that man?" Daniel's voice was soft, curious, the way only a child's could be. And though Adrian couldn't see inside the house, the sound pierced him. He lingered outside the gate, fighting the urge to shout, to claim his place as Daniel's father. But Claire's firm rejection still rang in his ears. "You lost that right." Adrian turned away, his chest heavy. For the first time in his life, he realized redemption wasn't something he could demand. He would have to earn it. But how? The following weeks were restless. Adrian couldn't concentrate in meetings, couldn't enjoy the luxuries that once defined him. His mind returned again and again to Daniel, his smile at the preschool, the innocence in his voice. And Claire, always Claire. Finally, he made a choice. Instead of barging into their lives like a tyrant, he would try something different: patience. One Saturday morning, Adrian drove to the neighborhood park. He had learned from the file that Claire often brought Daniel there to play. He sat on a bench at a distance, sunglasses masking his gaze. He watched as Daniel tumbled down the slide, his laughter pure, Claire cheering him on. For a moment, Adrian imagined himself beside them, a family, whole. The fantasy was almost painful. When Claire finally noticed him, her smile faded. She walked over, tense. "What are you doing here?" Adrian stood, his voice low. "Just watching. I won't come close. I need to see him." Claire's jaw clenched. "This isn't healthy, Adrian. You can't stalk us." "I'm not stalking. I'm trying. I don't expect you to trust me overnight, but I can't walk away." Her eyes searched his face, skeptical. "You're not the man I knew. He wouldn't be standing here begging."
Adrian exhaled. Maybe I wasn't a man at all back then. The words hung heavy between them. For the first time, Claire's anger softened, but only slightly. Over time, Adrian found ways to show he wasn't the same ruthless man. He began donating anonymously to the preschool, ensuring they had new books and supplies. He arranged for safer lighting in Claire's neighborhood, though she suspected the source. One day, Claire confronted him. "Stop throwing money at us," she snapped. "That's not what we need." Adrian nodded, surprisingly calm. "Then tell me what you do need." Claire hesitated. She wanted to say nothing, but the truth was Daniel needed stability. And though she hated to admit it, Adrian's persistence was beginning to chip away at the wall she had built. Finally, she said, "If you really care, prove it with your time, not your wallet." It began cautiously. Claire allowed Adrian to meet Daniel at the park, under her watchful eye. Adrian sat stiffly on the grass as Daniel built a crooked sandcastle. The boy glanced at him shyly, then offered a plastic shovel. "Help?" Adrian blinked, caught off guard. His hands, usually reserved for contracts and deals, awkwardly dug into the sand. Daniel giggled, correcting his technique, and for the first time in years, Adrian laughed too. Claire watched from a distance, conflicted. She had sworn to keep Adrian away, to shield Daniel from his arrogance. But the sight of them together, the boy's innocent trust, Adrian's unguarded smile, stirred something she didn't want to admit. That night, Adrian found himself replaying every moment. The sandcastle, Daniel's giggles, Claire's cautious gaze. For years, he had believed success meant skyscrapers and stock prices. But now, in a small park with sand under his nails, he felt something entirely new, meaning, and it terrified him. Weeks passed, and Adrian became a quiet presence, always respectful of Claire's boundaries, never pushing too far. Until one evening, Claire surprised him. "Daniel keeps asking about you," she admitted, her voice reluctant. "He thinks you're nice." Adrian's heart tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That you're an old friend." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Claire sighed. "He wants you to come for dinner, just once. Don't make me regret this." Adrian swallowed hard. "I won't."
The modest home was nothing like Adrian's penthouse, but it radiated warmth. The walls were lined with drawings Daniel had made, his toys scattered across the floor. Adrian sat nervously at the table, trying not to look out of place. Claire served a simple pasta dish, and Daniel chattered away between bites. "Mr. Adrian, did you know dinosaurs could swim?" Daniel asked between bites. Adrian chuckled. "I didn't. You'll have to teach me." The boy grinned, launching into an animated explanation. Adrian listened intently, marveling at the purity of it all. For a fleeting moment, it felt like family. Claire noticed, too. Her guard didn't drop completely, but her eyes softened as she watched Daniel's joy. After dinner, Adrian helped Daniel stack blocks into a tall tower. When the tower toppled, Daniel laughed and clapped. Adrian's chest ached. He wanted to freeze the moment forever. As he left that night, Claire walked him to the door. Her voice was firm but quieter than before. "Don't hurt him. If you break his heart, Adrian, I'll never forgive you." Adrian met her gaze. "I won't. Not this time." But peace never lasts long. One evening, Adrian arrived at the preschool to pick Daniel up at Claire's cautious invitation. As he buckled the boy into the car seat, reporters suddenly swarmed, cameras flashing. "Mr. Blackwell, is this your secret son? Who's the mother? Does this mean a scandal for your company?" Adrian's blood ran cold. Claire rushed forward, fury in her eyes. "You did this," she hissed. "I didn't," Adrian protested, shielding Daniel from the cameras. But the damage was done. That night, headlines blared across every news outlet. "Millionaire CEO hiding a secret family?" Claire's phone rang endlessly, friends and coworkers bombarding her with questions. Her sanctuary was shattered. And when Adrian appeared at her door, she met him with fire in her voice. "You wanted to prove yourself? Congratulations, Adrian! You've ruined everything." She slammed the door, leaving him outside in the dark, his chance at redemption hanging by a thread.
The next morning, the world was different. Adrian's phone buzzed with relentless calls from board members, investors, and journalists. His company's stock was already sliding, and the whispers were loud. CEO hides secret family. Liar. Hypocrite. But none of it mattered compared to Claire. She wouldn't answer his calls. When he showed up at her house, she refused to open the door. He stood outside for hours, ignoring the photographers lurking in the distance, until finally he whispered through the wood, "I didn't call them, Claire. Please believe me." Silence. The only sound was Daniel's small voice from inside, asking, "Mommy, why is he here again?" Adrian closed his eyes, his heart splintering. Inside, Claire sat with Daniel in her lap, her hands trembling. The peace she had fought for was shattered. Parents at the preschool whispered, colleagues stared, and she feared Daniel's life would never be the same. Her anger at Adrian burned hot. She wanted to believe him, but the scars of his past cruelty screamed otherwise. He had once demanded she erase Daniel. Why should she trust him now? She pulled Daniel close. "We don't need him," she whispered, though her voice cracked. "We never did." But deep down, she wondered if that was true anymore. For the first time, Adrian considered stepping down as CEO. The board pushed for damage control, urging him to issue a cold, calculated statement. But Adrian refused. "This isn't about the company. This is about them." He knew then what he had to do. At the next press conference, Adrian stood at the podium, flashes blinding him. His tie was gone, his tone stripped of the arrogance that once defined him. "I've made mistakes. Years ago, I chose ambition over love, power over responsibility, and in that choice, I hurt someone who never deserved it.
That woman and the boy you've seen in those photos, they're not my shame, they're my truth. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I can be the man they deserve." The room erupted in questions, but Adrian walked away, leaving the statement to stand on its own. For once, he didn't care about spin. That evening, Claire watched the press conference on her old TV. She sat stiffly, Daniel beside her, her small hand wrapped around hers. Adrian's words replayed in her mind. "They're not my shame, they're my truth." Her heart warred with itself. She remembered the man who had shattered her, but she also saw the man who had knelt in the park, building sandcastles with their son. When a knock sounded at the door, Claire's breath caught. Slowly, she opened it. Adrian stood there, not in his tailored suits, but in a plain shirt, dark circles under his eyes. He looked human. "I meant every word," he said quietly, "but I know words aren't enough." Claire's eyes glistened. "Why now, Adrian? Why only when the world is watching?" "Because for the first time, I'm not afraid of the world. I'm only afraid of losing you, of losing him." Before Claire could reply, Daniel toddled forward. He tilted his head, studying Adrian with curious eyes. "Mommy, is he my daddy?" The room froze. Claire's throat tightened, but she nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetheart, he is." Daniel blinked, then looked up at Adrian. "Do you want to play dinosaurs with me?" Tears stung Adrian's eyes. He knelt, his voice breaking. "More than anything." Daniel beamed, grabbing his hand and pulling him inside. For the first time, Claire didn't stop him. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Claire didn't forgive overnight. There were arguments, doubts, and moments when old wounds reopened. But Adrian kept showing up, not with money or grand gestures, but with time. Helping Daniel with school projects, fixing the leaky faucet in Claire's kitchen, sitting with her after Daniel went to bed, sometimes in silence, sometimes in halting conversation that carried both pain and hope. One night, Claire finally said the words he had longed to hear. "You're not the same man, Adrian. I see that now." His hand trembled as he reached for hers. "I don't deserve another chance, but I'll spend the rest of my life earning it." And for once, Claire didn't pull away. Months later, Adrian stood at Daniel's preschool play, sitting beside Claire in a modest auditorium instead of a private box at an opera house. When Daniel spotted them in the crowd, his face lit up. He waved wildly, shouting, "Mommy! Daddy!" Adrian's chest swelled with a joy he had never known. He glanced at Claire, who smiled faintly, her eyes soft. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Adrian Blackwell, the man who once believed he could control everything, that was enough.
The millionaire CEO forced her to abort, but years later, fate made him freeze. And when he did, he faced the truth no fortune could protect him from, the cost of arrogance and the gift of redemption. Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't found in power or empires, but in the second chance we never believed we deserve.